I'd like to call this regularly scheduled board meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Invocation or moment of silence, Mr. Ungary.
So I'd like to start with a prayer. Lord, we come before you thankful to be starting a new school year. We ask that this school year be a special school year, a year that is filled with high expectations for all. Bless every student, every teacher, every administrator, and every staff worker. We ask, Lord, that you impart three things into all who enter our school: respect for each other, understanding of each other, and compassion for each other. Lord, we pray for excellence in our teaching, excellence in our learning, and excellence in our lives. Inspire our teachers to teach and to embrace the challenges of their most rewarding profession. And we ask that you create within each of our students an unquenchable hunger and thirst for learning and for knowledge. Fill every classroom and hallway with your love and your peace, and we ask that you help to encourage and strengthen all those that are most in need. And finally, Lord, we ask that you place your hand of protection upon our Enfield Public Schools and all schools in Enfield, and camp your angels about them. Help us in guarding and protecting our students from any evil and from anything or anyone seeking to cause harm. We thank you for your provision, and we thank you for hearing our prayer. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Fire evacuation announcement. Double doors are behind you. Head out the double doors and out to the parking lot. We have double doors to my left, your right. Head down the stairs and out to the parking lot. Roll call, please, Kathy.
Mr. Ungary?
Here.
Dr. Kalnin?
Here.
Mrs. Cushman?
Here.
Mr. Hamry?
Here.
Mrs. Acree?
Here.
Mr. LeBlanc?
Here.
Mrs. Pickett?
Here.
Mr. Ryder?
Here.
Madam Chair?
Here. Board guests. We do not have board guests this evening. So item 7, superintendent's report. Mr. Drezek?
Hi, everyone. Not sure if you can, hopefully you can hear me. So obviously you figured out that I'm not physically present this evening, so I apologize. As some of you may know, my daughter attends college out of state, and as luck would have it, her move-in date conflicted with this evening's meeting, so I apologize for not being there in person. Ordinarily, I'd say I regret not being there, but I think everyone in my family is ready for her to go back to school, including her herself, so this is a good thing. But tonight of all nights, I really wish I was physically present to be able to participate in this evening's meeting. But since I'm dialing in, I haven't had a chance to see how this evening's community conversation had gone, but I expect to hear more as board members and community members do speak shortly. So to be honest, I had prepared a list of things to go over this evening, but given recent events, I think it's a better use of this time to focus on that. However, since this is the first meeting before the school year starts, I'll mention just a few items for parents who may be watching simply for updates on the new school year. If you bear with me, I'll just go through a few quick things. Most importantly, we are ready and excited to welcome our students back next week for our first day of school on Tuesday, August 30th. We've been working all summer to prepare our kids to return, and I think I could speak for all of our staff when I say that we couldn't be more excited for our students to return. I did have a bit more, as I stated earlier, but I'll just list a few things for parents to look out for. The first is, obviously, COVID is still here. I can't control that. I wish I could. But we're still going to do everything possible to keep everyone as safe as we can. But I can't promise that there won't be additional outbreaks. So I'm going to ask parents again, if your child has symptoms, please let us know and keep your child home. We do have test kits available to share with any family that needs them, but our goal is to keep everyone safe, and just as important to keep all of our schools open. And we can't do that if COVID spreads throughout our buildings again, like we dealt with last spring. So I'm asking everyone to just please be mindful of symptoms and to notify us. If you have any questions, your school nurse is well equipped to answer them for you. Our quarantine guidelines, resources are going to be available on our website. Any questions should be directed to your school nurse. 2, it is not 2019 again, but we are working to make life look a little bit more normal for our kids. And one thing I wanted to make sure I said on camera this evening is that our cafeterias will be open again. So our students won't be required to eat in their classrooms like they have been the last 2 years. In a little bit more of a sense of normalcy, we are going to be able to allow visitors once again. Now, this doesn't mean for parents that you should just show up at your kid's school unannounced, unlike the last 2 years. If you do have a need to be in our schools, we can be a little bit more accommodating than we have been able to the last few years. So if anyone is interested in going to your child's school, though, you do need to be prepared. You'll have to show identification and follow all of our security protocols, just as we did prior to COVID. If you're not willing to show ID, you're not going to be permitted to enter a school. And it's always a good practice to inform the school prior to arriving if you plan on attending, if you're able to. But we are going to try to start allowing life to look a little bit more like it was pre-pandemic to the best of our abilities that we can. Another item that I know Ms. Edwards sent a message out yesterday with regards to free lunch, but we are going to take advantage to state funding. So the last 2 years, all of our students, regardless of free and reduced lunch status, were eligible to receive free lunch. That program has ended. We are going to take advantage of state funding that will allow us to continue to offer free lunch for all of our students, but it'll be for a limited time. So when this funding runs out, unfortunately, we have to return to paid lunches for our students who don't qualify. But for the time being, we want to extend free lunch to all of our kids for as long as we can. So as it stands, it looks like we can offer this through October. I'm not going to say the end of October, but we will notify all families when this program does run out. We do have to give the state 30 days notice on how long we can accommodate for. So we're going to try to give families as much notice as that we have to give to the state as well. I did plan on giving a brief update on our alliance status tonight, but I think it might be best to wait until the next meeting when I'm able to further explain the process in person. I do want to add that you may be hearing this in the coming days, that data for those past school years is due to be released. It is not available for us at the moment. When the state notifies us that the data is out, that information is embargoed. So unfortunately, the media may get a hold of it before we're able to share anything with the board. But I know there are some that are interested in our most recent figures, but unfortunately, everyone's going to have to wait a little bit longer. Once we get that information and have a chance to present it to the board, we will certainly do that. On an important note, today, Mr. Longy filled in for me during our new teacher orientation. Proud to say that we now have 47 new certified staff members joining the Enfield Public Schools family. I want to take this time to welcome everyone to the district, and I can't wait to get a chance to meet you all in person. And lastly, I want to address the incident that happened to one of our Enfield High School students last week. I just feel the need to repeat this. I know I put this in my letter, but what happened to one of our students is deplorable. And I'm sorry to this young man that he had to endure what he did. But I also want to take this opportunity to commend him again. I know his mom shared his name publicly, and as you guys know, I don't share students' names publicly, so I won't do that. I'll refer to him as our Enfield High student, but the dignity, the grace, and the courage to walk away, something that I'm not sure I would have been able to do, and I don't know if any of you sitting up there would have been able to do that either. But for a young man his age, he set an example for all of us. So I realize that as a board, a district, and a community, we have a lot of work to do around equity and inclusion. But I just hope everyone understands that my priority is and always will be making sure that our kids are all right. So normally I send messages to our staff or to our parents, but tonight it's for our kids. Probably not a lot of them watching, but if you are, if you take anything away from this message, now I can't speak on behalf of the board. I know that the chair and the vice chair said they would put their name on this, but the rest of you have an opportunity to speak during board member comments. You can certainly add if you'd like. The message for our kids is this: we're with you, and we'll continue to be with you and continue to have your back for as long as it takes. That said, to conclude the superintendent's report, and Madam Chair, I'm going to apologize. I don't know how good the Wi-Fi is where I am. So I'm going to turn my camera off to try to preserve it, but I will be on, and I will try to turn my camera back on when there's a need for me to go back on camera.
Thank you, Mr. Drezek. Audiences? Chris, did you have something to add? No, okay. Liz Davis? Oh, I just want to take a moment to make an announcement regarding audiences. I'm just a little rusty getting back into the swing of things here. You must be an Enfield resident to participate in the audience portion of the meeting. We ask that you state your name and address. Board members cannot respond back to you during this portion of the meeting. Board members can respond during their comments if they choose to do so. We also cannot respond to student or personnel matters. We strongly ask that you refrain from personalities. We strongly ask that you refrain from yelling out during audiences or board members during their comments. This evening, we have 3 members. We will allow 4 minutes. Liz Davis?
Good evening. My name's Liz Davis, and I reside at 201 North Maple Street. First off, I want to wish everybody a great start of a new school year. And I'm truly hoping that we can stay focused on our children's education and add to it and stop attacking it. So with that being said, I also want to bring up of what happened over this weekend in our town, that can happen to a 14-year-old kid, to a child. Are you kidding me? Like, where is our community going? In what direction? We sit here and we'll say all this stuff and pray for Jesus and watch out for every child, and we care for every child. Why people sat in those seats attacking our children all last school year. Y'all can live with that, and you all do have to answer to up above. People are watching your actions, and they're going to act the same way you guys are. So let's lead by example. And just because we pray to the Lord up above doesn't make you better than anybody else. Your actions speak louder, and that's what my father always taught me in our Catholic church. You can say what you want. Talk's cheap. Walk the walk. Your actions speak way louder than your words, and you've been watched so closely. My heart breaks. I don't know how your heart can't break for these children. I'm really hoping this school year we'll go for every child every day, okay? Not just our white children, not just our straight children. Every child, every day. I thought that's what you took an oath for. What I've watched some posts being made by, I'm going to say it, the Republican Party is repulsive and disgusting. When I watch some of the Enfield Republican Town Committee comments, especially about this incident. My heart breaks for it, for this family, for everybody. And I do want to thank the school system, our town manager, our town mayor, our Board of Ed chair for the quick reaction. Because I just came from Enfield High. And you know what? We are having that tough conversation, okay? And let's hope we can move forward, because every child deserves to be safe every day, no matter what community you live in. I want everybody to take a second and think if that was your child. I don't care if you got a white child, still think if that was your child and they were threatened, how would you have handled it? I know how I would have. And this parent handled it with grace, and so did this child. I'm very proud, because I would have handled it totally different if someone did that to my child. So I'm really hoping, I'm going to say it one more time, that we start this school year right, and we are here for every child every day. And let's not lose the Lord's name in vain and keep lying and using his name, okay? Because I'm tired of hearing people say they're here for God's name or Jesus' name and doing their work, when no. Because as Father Tom told me, God or Jesus, whatever your father is, they bring love. They never bring hate, illness, conspiracy theories, lies. They bring love. So let's hope we can start this school year right. And thank you all for all your time you put in for this community. I truly appreciate it. And our superintendent's not here. Thank you very much. And to our staff at central office, thank you. And to all our teachers, staff, students, have a wonderful year.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Kelly Jackson?
Kelly Jackson, 30 Mead Lane. Wash, rinse, repeat. It's truly sad that it had to be in your face for anything to be taken seriously. The courageous conversation that happened tonight is long overdue. The work in the schools is long overdue. I have been coming here for 4+ years. I've sat here and I've said, there's racial issues in our schools, there's racial issues in our towns, and I hear from quite often the Republicans that, oh, well, we'll handle it, we'll deal with it, we'll do this, we'll do that, and nothing's ever done. You just fight against it. That's all you do. My question to you, Mr. Ungeyer, is you didn't even stay for the whole courageous conversation tonight. You left early. For what? Why couldn't you sit there and hear what was said? There was a lot of things said that probably would have benefited you. It's frustrating, and it's horrifying that my child had to go through this in order for any of you to pay attention, for anybody to pay attention. I've been screaming it forever. You need to do better. Do better.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Alyssa, you'll just have to tell me how to pronounce your last name when you get to the microphone.
Is it on?
Yeah, if the red light is on, it should be on.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, it's Alyssa Suter, and it's 20. I live at 22B Prospect. I grew up in this town. I just moved back to this town, so I've been paying attention to the Board of Ed meetings for the past year or so, probably longer than that, to be honest, but I've lost track. So I've heard time and time again people asking you to advocate for Black and brown children. While I've seen progress recently, I'm again furious and disgusted by racism in this town. The fact that this town is so used to just hiding it or sweeping it under the rug. While you can't control who lives here, you control the narrative that is taught to the young people that are growing up here. If you have chosen up until this point where a 14-year-old Black athlete was threatened to be shot off someone's property for fundraising for our schools, if you have decided that racism is not that big of a deal until now, then you have failed this child and many more. You're complacent, and your silence is and has the growing potential to be violence. I hear some of you advocate for the use of FAIR or all of these different acronym things for teaching about what equity and inclusion is supposed to be, which, no, I'm not gonna, okay. That in itself makes me nauseous, because you're worried about the way that white kids' feelings are going to be hurt. How do you think Black and brown children have always felt? Do you know how tone deaf you sound when you say those things? How do you think this Black child felt when he was called the N-word and threatened at the age of 14? Do you think that his worldview has literally been forever changed? Back to the fragile white children that we've been talking about. Guess how they grow up? They grow up to be that person that traumatized this young Black man. Because people like you try to sugarcoat racism, pretending that it's not that bad or that it's old news. It's alive and well. We've just experienced that. So if you're disgusted by this white woman screaming so loud that it woke her son up because there was a Black child in her driveway, it terrified her that there was a 14-year-old Black child in her driveway, do something about it. And don't do it on your terms. Listen to Black and brown people and get uncomfortable. The truth hurts. Every single one of us grew up in a systemically racist society, and it is past the time to do better.
Thank you, Ms. Suter. That's the end of public comments. At this time, for people who came in late who might have wanted to speak tonight, you have to be an Enfield resident to speak. So unfortunately, that's the policy. So I just wanted to let you know that. Okay, we're going to move on to board member comments. I'm going to start with Ms. Acree this evening.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to our 2022-2023 school year. I'm looking forward again to working with the board, visiting all the schools, attending the school events and performances, and being part of the decision-making that is very important for the Enfield Public School students. But I'm also hoping for this school year that some issues that are a concern will be discussed more, like tonight, resolved, and issues such as the racial incident that happened on August 13th, bullying that I've heard that may be happening in our schools, but also the things about curriculum that parents are concerned about, and teaching children tolerance, kindness, and how that goes a long way, and acceptance of one another. So I'm hoping that this will happen through the Parent Advisory Committee that's starting to form by Mr. Ungeyer and Mrs. Pickett. All right, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Acree. Dr. Kalnin?
Thank you. This discussion about the racism that's still, unfortunately, too much alive in our community brought back some memories. I spent a good part of my youth in a little community in Georgia back in the early 1960s. When I went to school, the N-word was used by teachers and students alike as if it was just another word in our vocabulary. And every now and then I'm tempted to believe that those days are behind us. And the events of this past week indicate that we still have a long way to go. So we can't sit back and rest. We have to always be vigilant to the threat of racism in our community and be prepared to promptly address it. Last October, I had mentioned that health and learning are intertwined. Optimal health makes a good education more likely, and a good education improves the chances for optimal health. All of us know that we are in the midst of a childhood mental health crisis. For the coming year, I am confident that this board will place top priority to ensuring the mental health needs of the students in our care, which can best be accomplished in the context of a fully functional school-based health center. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kalnin. Ms. Cushman?
I'd like to offer a welcome back to all the students and the staff as we begin a new school year, and to hope that everyone had a good and restful summer. They're all geared up and ready to go. I did have the opportunity to attend the community conversation event that was hosted in the high school auditorium earlier this evening. Naturally, I went to be an encouragement and to show support for all of the youth in our town. And I appreciate the comment of the superintendent and know that he is sincere when he expresses concern for the safety of our students. And I agree with the comment just made that we are putting a priority to ensure the safety of every child in every school in our district. There was a concern that I had that as the plans for this event unfolded, I was stunned by what seemed to be a disregard by the leadership in Enfield, who determined to hold the event at the high school despite the fact that our entire board, that all 9 of us objected to using the public school facility for this purpose. These objections were communicated in a leadership meeting last week and fully supported by every board member. in light of the possibility of this being a potentially volatile event, the objections were based on maintaining the safety and privacy of each and every Enfield student, as it was possible that there would still be some of the students on school grounds for the purpose of athletics or other extracurricular activities. So it was encouraging to see the good turnout, but we need to maintain the safety and privacy of our students as a first priority. And the position of this board should not be so lightly disregarded. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cushman. Mr. Hamry?
Thank you. First off, that last statement about this board in agreement on the decisions of the location of tonight's meeting was absolutely false. There was no unanimous decision about that made.
Can I ask for you guys to quiet down?
There was no unanimous
Please.
decision about the location of the meeting, and what was just said is a complete falsehood. I know because I'm up here, and it was not a question posed to me at any point. Should that have been? Don't know, but it was not. So the claim that it was a unanimous decision about a meeting that took place to address a cultural issue in our town, absolutely false, straight out of the gate. Let's put that to rest. That leads me to something I was going to talk about later on, but I'm going to, in this comment section, but I'm going to address it now because it's kind of tied in, and I'm a little fired up right now, so I apologize in advance to those that may be offended. July 9th, we had a parade in town to celebrate the 4th of July weekend in town. As the elected officials of the Board of Education, we are invited to attend the parade and march representing the Board of Ed as a group. I also celebrate and help facilitate, not facilitate, pardon me. I help, and again, I'm a little upset right now, so I apologize if my words are coming a little jumbled right now. I support the Enfield Pride organization. I've made statements to this board and to this public from this seat that I believe everybody has a place in this town, that all are welcome. While we were waiting for the parade to kick off, I was with that Enfield Pride organization who are participating for the first time as a group because they are now confident and comfortable enough to do that in public, to represent who they are as a group, as a demographic that is protected under the Constitution. And I was with my family also supporting that group. While I was there waiting for the Democrats and the Board of Ed to walk past at the beginning of that parade, Mr. Ungary took it upon himself to ask our chair if I am gay. Now, let me be very clear about this. And this is something that I put in an email to Mr. Ungary to ask about directly to him following that conversation. The question I asked him was, actually, let me just paraphrase this to 3 points. First, you have never got the right to ask anybody that question ever. It is never appropriate to ask that question. Second, now that you feel comfortable asking that question, please explain yourself. And the rest of it, again, I can forward it on to anybody that wants to receive it. It's an email that was addressed to both, to John initially, to Mr. Ungary. His response included the chairman and Ms. Acree, who was in that conversation initially. I didn't get a response. I got an excuse. Let's talk about this before or after the meeting. Before or after this meeting tonight. I said, no, we're going to talk about it during. Because it's an official representation that we're participating in. We're at a public event as a Board of Ed, representing the town. The conversation should have taken place directly with me, because I'm there waiting to talk to anybody. Well, I'm very available. I'm approachable. I may be 6 foot tall, 300 pounds. I got a goatee and a mustache, but don't worry about me. You can approach me. I promise you, I'm not going to be offended. I would not have been offended by the question if it had been asked of me directly. Yet, it wasn't. It was asked in a hush-hush tone. Let's just find out, is he gay? Let me just take a moment to acknowledge the fact that it's none of his goddamn business.
Can you guys please stop? Thank you.
Having said that, I don't want to take away from the town's event this evening. We missed out on a fantastic opportunity to be a part of the organization because we had this meeting scheduled tonight. I do commend the town manager and town council members' leadership that made that meeting possible on relatively short notice. I wish I had more opportunity to be there for it because it was an opportunity that was just getting off the ground when we had to leave to come here to prepare for this meeting. So, I forgot her last name, but Kimora, she did a fantastic job facilitating from what I was able to witness. Very enthusiastic and subject matter expert that had a lot to offer to not just our students, but our administration, our teachers, our staff, our citizens, our residents, our voters. The town had a lot to benefit from that conversation. My only fear is that the people that need to benefit from the most were not attending because they don't care. So, next, I do want to commend the student that was involved in the incident that led to that community conversation. He did, in fact, rise above. He responded in the way that we hoped anybody would in that situation, in that confrontational moment. But take a moment to realize he did that because he was trained to, because he had to. It's a survival instinct to be able to take that heat from somebody that doesn't give a care about him and walk away and do the right thing. Now, apply that to any demographic that we have considered in this board. The conversations that we've had about the LGBTQ community, they respond the same way. They have to hide who they are because they don't want to be on the receiving end of people that don't understand, the people that hate, the people that have bigotry. They have to be protecting themselves at all times. And let's open that a little wider. We have our daughters trained, at least when I was growing up, my sister was trained to hold her keys between her knuckles because there's going to be some man that assaults her. Because that's the way this culture is. That the male has the position to take that, what he wants, and apply that across however you feel appropriate. So, after all of that, I apologize for taking so much time. This has been a conversation that's been a long time coming, and I do want to say that following those emails to Mr. Ungeyer, there was no follow-up expectation or explanation. There was, despite having 2 months or a month or however long it's been, to formulate a response to my question. It is ironic, though, that this comes from the gentleman that has been spearheading the idea of a root cause analysis to get to the problems of an issue that has been put to rest through many, many conversations involving many layers of the administration and the proper procedures on which things are handled as a Board of Ed. The situation that you are trying to get to the root cause analysis of through that parent advisory committee and the preceding whatever version that was, that issue has been addressed ad nauseum. It's been done. But it's going to be continuing to boil up because people are continuing to try to get it to become something it isn't, something that it never was. It was a situation that was addressed in the proper channels through the administrative process and through the disciplinary process of this district. It's done. So I do appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I apologize again for taking so long. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamry. Mr. LeBlanc?
Exciting time of year. With all the orientations that were taking place between the end of last week and yesterday and today. So I just want to wish all the students a successful school year. Keep up the hard work inside and outside of the school building, and in all your extracurricular activities. Again, exciting time of year. I look forward to the school year, and go Enfield Eagles.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Ms. Pickett?
So it takes me a lot to prepare to come to these meetings. And so I want to acknowledge that I'm sitting here tonight with a lot of emotions flowing through me. I, too, was at the community conversation and was sad to have to leave. And I wear many hats. I'm a mom, I'm a Board of Ed member, I'm a wife. All those identities live in me. So sometimes I'm trying to sit here really hard with my Board of Ed hat on, but I can't let those other pieces of me not creep in. So like you, Ms. Jackson, I agree, this is long overdue. I'm sad and I'm frustrated. I can't help but look at you and see myself. Someday, my biracial son may be participating in a team or club activity, and this could very well happen to him. So as I prepared for tonight's conversation and meeting, I couldn't help but feel some type of deja vu. Equity, and in particular racial equity, is something that I'm incredibly passionate about. In fact, the first time I ever came to these council chambers was as a mom of a kindergartner, and I came to talk about racial equity. So like you, Ms. Jackson, I asked those in power to do something. And I'm sitting here now. So I want to remind everybody of the words that I said then, because my feelings are actually not so different. So I came on January 26th of 2021 as a mom of a kindergarten student. And this is what I said. Good evening. I sit before you as a mom, a white mom of 2 biracial Enfield Public School students. Although my family's experience thus far at Stowe and Enfield Street have been very positive, I can't help but think ahead. I'm here to speak about the equity work and specifically racial equity. I have looked at Enfield's data through the publicly available EdSite data source that Chris mentioned earlier. Enfield has had consistently high suspension rate and high disproportionality. District-wide, 17.4% of our Black students receive a suspension, and compared to 6.8% of their white students. The data gets even more appalling when you look at the secondary setting. At the high school, 27.2% of our special ed students receive a suspension, 33.3% of our Black students, that's a third, receive a suspension or expulsion, compared to 11.9% of their white peers. I want to be clear that this data does not confirm bias that Black and brown students are bad or engage in more challenging behavior. Instead, this data is a byproduct of systemic barriers, bias policy, and unequal and unfair discipline practices. So yes, equity work is needed. However, this work is much more than just a conversation or a flavor of the month. This work needs to be intentional and live in Enfield Public Schools' mission, vision, and values in order to sustain. It needs to live in not only conversations, but how we develop curriculum, train and support staff, hiring procedures, and implementation of policies and practices in our school. So at this time, back then in 2021, I was thanking Ms. Clark and her team for letting me join their high school equity team family conversation. And I commend them for including Family Voice in their work. They talked about an equity audit tool for evaluating curriculum, and I shared that this is definitely needed, but needs to be paired with professional development, personal reflection, coaching and support, and revision of institutional policies and practices. I'm glad that this work is being done at the high school, but I ask about a district equity team. What about the other schools? Including students, families, and community members is needed from the get-go. Unfortunately, the staff of our district does not reflect the demographics of our students. We need more than listening circles, but a voice in the decision-making and planning. I'm sitting before you to ask all of us in power to stop and reflect. Think about your identity, who you are racially, your life experiences, all those identities that I acknowledge shape me, how those shape the spaces that you enter, the perspective that you bring to this room and your decision-making. How are you welcoming multiple perspectives in this space and seeking to understand instead of judge or assume? Lastly, again, this was back in 2021, I'd like to encourage you to explore ways to make these Board of Ed meetings more student and family friendly. A more comprehensive approach to including families and students in this dialogue is needed. Access and involvement is needed. Don't let the few that show up in person or the small number viewing online fool you into believing that families don't care. Instead, see it as a barrier and find the solutions. So as I reflect, not much has changed. I'm committed to seeing our equity policy becoming actualized. I'm committed to supporting Enfield Public Schools and Ms. Cox Blackwell develop a sustainable and comprehensive plan that will lead to a long-term outcomes and success. Tonight's community conversation was a step in the right direction, but the hard work is what follows. I commend our town leadership for putting together tonight's conversation and for your patience with my questions, thoughts, concerns. Believe me, Janet, I too had thoughts, questions, and concerns. I'm still kind of angry that it was planned on a Board of Ed night because I would have loved to be able to participate in the full event. But But with that being said, I plan on continuing to hold our Board of Ed, our superintendent, our town council, and our town manager accountable to follow up, to remain committed to this work for purposeful and generalized change. I also want to take a moment to thank the student athlete, his family, the coaches, and our Enfield Public School staff for their response. No one should ever have to experience this. However, we also know that incidents like these are not uncommon. I'm specifically asking our schools and athletic director to review policies and protocols around fundraising and game day procedures. If we can predict it, we need to do our best to prevent it or minimize the impact. We can't solve racism alone or in a day, but we all need to be willing to do our part. So that's what I have to say around the issues that were addressed tonight in tonight's community conversation and from our speakers, our audience members. There's a couple other back to school updates that I do want to add to my comments. One is I'm excited by Chris's update about universal free lunch, at least up until October at some point. I think Dr. Kalnick could agree with me that it's a best practice to feed kids. And actually it makes it more accessible as well, so there's not a stigma around who gets free lunch and who doesn't. And it just becomes we are fed at school. I want to thank everybody for back to school, teachers, staff, secretaries, nurses, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you to the 47, I think Chris said, new certified staff who joined us today. Thank you for choosing to join Enfield. I hope you stay. It's an amazing place to be. And I agree with Chris. Our priority is that our kids are all right and we stay committed to this work. I also want to thank the staff. And by staff, again, broad definition from bus drivers to secretaries to administrators to teachers who supported the summer programs that were offered. Both of my kiddos participated in various summer programs and had an amazing, amazing time. And I just want to thank everybody who I know you need a break, but yet you showed up for kids even in the summer to help us give some good summer learning. I also want to thank our town staff who helped with parking lots and roof repair of our schools. I want to remind voters and folks that schools are important town facilities. So those pieces are on the town side of the budget, so ensuring that we prioritize our school buildings and facilities and the attention that they deserve. We need to be advocating that across our Board of Ed and with our town partners. I'm anxious to hear more about our Alliance State update from Chris maybe next month, and our data and some ARP planning, maybe what we're doing with some of that American Rescue Plan dollars and how we will be using that to achieve our goals and implementing this work. I also wanted to share just a quick Enfield Street school update. I attended as a mom for orientation for kindergarten back in school. That was amazing. Sorry. That was my husband's first time in our public schools. And I think for a family being able to go back into our schools and experience that, I just want to thank everybody who planned that, did that, and participated. And I know Enfield Street School is planning a back-to-school night early in September. I want to say it's the 8th, but don't quote me. Check the newsletter that comes out every Friday for that information. So thank you. Happy back to school. And again, I remain committed to the hard work ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Pickett. Mr. Ungeyer?
So, let's see, I'm going to start with Hazardville Memorial. So, Hazardville Memorial had their kindergarten orientation yesterday. And there's a new assistant principal at Hazardville Memorial. His name is Nick Flynn. And I want to welcome Nick Flynn to Hazardville Memorial. And I know that Nick is going to do a great job there. So, I deplore racism. I hate it. And I see these things, and so I think maybe I just want to give some people a little insight about some things that I was involved in. And Lori, my wife Lori, who's there, okay? Several years ago, this was many years ago, I had a black friend. He was a pastor of a church, and he had asked Lori and I to help him in starting a new church in the north end of Hartford, Connecticut. And so we agreed to be the youth leaders for his church. And for 3 years, we met 3 times a week on Blue Hills Avenue in the north end of Hartford with a completely church that was all African American. And we were the 2 youth leaders at that.
I have to ask everyone in the audience. We have had very contentious board meetings where we have just wanted the same respect we give you when you're talking. So I'd appreciate it if we could all be quiet while the board members are talking.
Thank you. So we led this youth group for 3 years in Hartford. We met in, I don't know. We met in the Martin Luther King Auditorium. We met in 3-car garages, and we saved our money, and we worked hard, and we ended up buying a church on Blue Hills Avenue from the Phillips, the old Phillips Church, and it became the Apostolic Church of Hartford. We did that for 3 years, and it was a labor of love to help all of those young people in North Hartford. When I sense that people say, "Oh yeah, you're racist," I hate racism. I hate it with a passion. I wouldn't have done anything like that for 3 years every week if I was a supporter of that kind of thing. I do hear people use the term, though, systemic racism. And I don't understand really what that term means, systemic racism. Because I would ask you then, please, show me one rule, one regulation, or one law that supports racism here in America or endorses it. I can't find one. I can't find a single one. But I do see a lot of laws that are anti-discrimination laws. I do see a lot of laws that are equal opportunity laws. These are the laws that are part of our system. They are in place to prevent racism. Now, there's a lot of stupid people out there who say stupid things. And I think what we saw here in Enfield on August 13th was exactly that. I don't think Enfield is a racist community. I don't believe that. But I do believe that there's some stupid people who live in Enfield who say stupid things. And it's a shame that our young people were subjected to something like that.
Thank you, Mr. Ungar. Mr. Ryder?
I do want to thank our town leadership for putting together tonight's conversation on cultural humility, which is the phrase that I learned this evening. My only objection to it being held at the high school was I was concerned that if the press were there, they'd send a camera down for B-roll and shoot our students practicing football just to tell the next story. And that was my only objection to the location of the event, but not to the event itself. But I want to welcome all of our students, our staff, our 37 new staff members. 37. Everybody at central office, all of our principals, our administrators, custodial services, lunch aides, bus drivers, everybody who has a hand in shaping our children's day inside of our school buildings. I welcome you back next Tuesday, August 30th. I wanted to let the Eli Whitney folks know that tomorrow, if you are a new Eli Whitney student, they're having orientation tomorrow evening from 6 to 7:30. That is on the 24th. From 6 to 6:30, the parents will meet in the all-purpose room. They will have signage out. They will have folks directing you. If you are coming up from Hazardville and you're a former Hazardville Husky, you're about to become a Whitney Wolf, and we welcome you. 6:30 to 7:15, you'll get to tour your classrooms, meet your teachers, etc. 7:15 to 7:30, it will just be a wrap-up. They're going to have probably like a scavenger hunt where you kind of get a feel for the building. I know every time you move up to the next level, every 3 years in our school district, that is a big concern. It's just having a comfort level for our littles to find their way from one classroom to the next. And I assure you that I can't alleviate that fear because I have it myself as I have students heading into 6th and 9th grade this fall, 2 new buildings. But I do know that we have great staff and that they will see them through it. I was also happy to hear that breakfast, at least for the time being, will be included in our school days. But I also did see a lot of questions about what the school lunches cost and how to reload their school bucks account. So the fact that we know that we have at least 30 days to get those communications out there is good. That's very pleasing. Also, I did share a post on EnfieldPTO.com that we were going to release the bus schedules today on the 23rd. I just wanted everybody to know that that will be up hopefully by tomorrow. Also, regarding masks, it's basically a mask at your comfort level situation. If you're more comfortable sending your students in with masks, that is still okay. And if you are not comfortable doing so, you are not being required to do so. But as the superintendent said, if you have symptoms, please get checked because the virus is still out there, the virus can still spread, and that could theoretically shut down schools based on staffing issues. It could send a whole classroom of students home, depending on who interacted with who, et cetera. So, and also to the superintendent's point, if you have questions about the policies related to that, reach out to your school nurse. And if that is also posted on the school's website, if it is not, I will ask that it be put up there, and we'll also share that on EnfieldPTO.com on all of our school pages. So I wanted to wish everybody a happy school year, a special happy orientation day on Monday. My daughter is an incoming freshman at Enfield High, so we have an Enfield Eagle in the house, and I will be an Enfield High parent for the next 7 years, as the students are 3 years apart. They'll have one that overlaps. That'll be a good 1 year to enjoy that. That hasn't happened since Hazardville, when Hazardville still had pre-K before Stowe had opened. I had a pre-K and a second grader, and I said this won't happen again until the older one's driving the younger one as a freshman to high school. So we're getting closer to that. We still have a ways to go. But I did want to thank the staff at Enfield High. I had a very nervous incoming freshman, and her orientation went well. We got to ride the bus, which was great, so you know where to go for the bus. So all of our freshmen that went to school on Friday or on Monday to Enfield High orientation, that is your bus route. That the time that you were out there to get your bus is the same time you should be prepared to pick it up next Tuesday. Although we will also add the caveat that the first day of school, there's always a little bit more traffic than is anticipated. There's obviously hundreds of more buses out on the roads than normal. So please find out when you're supposed to be at your bus stop. The beginning of every bus route, when those are posted tomorrow, that time of day that you see, if it says 6:50 at the corner of X and Z, that's what time the first bus stop is scheduled to happen. So if you are reading through the list of streets and you can assume, okay, we're probably the 8th or 9th stop based on all these roads, if you add a few minutes to each stop, I would still get there super early for the first few days until you start to see a consistency. And the same thing will happen as you're coming home from school. Again, there's going to be more buses on the road than a normal weekday that, come Tuesday next week. So your student might get home at one time on Tuesday and a different time on Wednesday. I imagine by the Tuesday after Labor Day, because we're also off that first Monday. So we start on Tuesday, we go to Friday. We get a 3-day weekend to celebrate, and then we're back on Tuesday. I think that you'll see that come that Tuesday and Wednesday, the times that the buses pick you up and drop you off will start being consistent. So I just wanted to mention that. And also, please, please, please be more conscious of the buses and the stop signs that flap out when they stop. Too many drivers kind of get out of that habit over the 69, 70 days of summer. And I just want to remind all of our drivers that there's going to be littles out standing on street corners. They're going to be trying to cross the street in front of you. They may not know that the crosswalk is at the next block. Just be a little more conscious of that, please, as a favor to our kids and our fellow parents. That school is back in session next Tuesday, the 30th. We are starting before Labor Day, and we hope to be done by the second week of June. Oh, yeah, I was making sure I didn't miss anything else. I think that's everything. But yes, I wanted to dedicate tonight's meeting to my son, who turned 11 today, and allowed Dad to leave at 5 to head to the high school for this evening's community conversation, and then, of course, here at 7 o'clock for this. So happy birthday, B. We'll see you soon. Happy birthday, buddy.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Happy birthday, Elliot. I don't know if he's watching. Okay. I'd like to start with a clarification. Leadership did meet on Friday, and there were many members of the leadership committee that did express their concern about having the event at a school building, just due to the fact that we have a lot of students that were either, whether it was for the school or for a town sport or a town event, that would be attending or in attendance at those buildings. I had also heard concerns from Ms. Pickett and other concerns along the board. If Mr. Hamry, if I misrepresented you in saying that the entire board was concerned, I apologize for that. I apologize for you. I know that you have concern for me, as we all do, about the safety of the kids, so I probably misspoke for you, so I apologize for that, and I apologize to my board. I will own that. It was an assumption based on the fact that me and you are very like-minded, and Dr. Calnan as well, that it was really about the safety of the kids, especially at Enfield High. The football team had been through a lot, and we wanted to give them the privacy that they deserved and not have somebody go down to the field. And that was a general consensus of the board. I think the board, too, also felt strongly that it not be on the night of our board meeting, so that we could, those that wanted to attend the full meeting could be there. I had a very hard time breaking myself away from that this evening. It was very powerful. So I was going to take a minute and talk about my journey in educating myself about racism and systemic racism. And this is something I spoke about, like Ms. Pickett, in a prior meeting in June of 2020 with George Floyd. And I had a life-changing moment in 1998. I had lost my mother. She got sick and then passed away very quickly. And I was pregnant with my daughter. And I want you to know I'm not making this about me. And when I was at the wake, everybody kept telling me, I know how you feel. I know exactly how you feel. I know how you feel. And that was a defining moment for me, because they still had their moms. So how did they know how I felt? So what I did in my adulthood was never wanting to be the person to say, I know how you feel. If I didn't think that was right. But then I learned that my silence was doing just as much damage. So I started to educate myself on racism, systemic racism. I started reading books. I started attending a webinar. I attended an amazing webinar by Dr. Martha Brackeen Harris, who really dove deep into what our students see on the news when a Black person is hurt or there's civil injustice. And our Black students put the faces of their fathers, their uncles, their brothers, their cousins on those people. And they get very scared. And it's very scared for them. So that's what I'm doing. I'm not Black. I raised my children in Enfield. I have 3 white children. But I had children that were on that football team. And they blitzed, that's what it's called, the Saturday Blitz, for 6 years. And they never had that problem. They never were told to get off somebody's property. They were never called an ugly name. And more than likely, it's because they were white. But you think about the student who was on that driveway that day, and you put your child's face on that student, and the image is sad. Nobody should speak to a child that way. And my main concern, as Mr. Drezek stated, is that the kids are okay, and school starts next week, and they need to know that they're okay, that we are there for them, that they are supported. One of the former students that was there is a former football player, and immediately called the head coach. And that says a lot for that head coach, that this former player felt enough comfort to call him and say, look, this is what happened. And I commend the youths that were there. My heart breaks. So although I cannot fix what's happening in the country or with systemic racism, I can myself educate myself so I can become an ally and fight with you. And one of the things Dr. Martha Brackeen Harris had said is, you might not always know what to say, but if they know that you're there fighting with them, your Black and brown students, your parents of Black and brown students, your Black and brown parents, they know that they have an ally. So I want our students to know that they have an ally in me. I don't like what happened. I am on a journey to help. And that's my promise to the students in our school district and to the parents. Because not only do our students need to feel supported, our parents need to be supported. And that is the journey I am on, and I hope other people are on a journey. Another thing Dr. Martha said was, it doesn't matter where you are on your journey, it's that you are taking the steps to be on a journey. I also followed up with, at that time, it was prior to me meeting Mrs. Pickett, but I had asked, and it was during COVID, unfortunately, if there was a way, because we do not have a Enfield Public School staff that accurately reflects our demographics, if we could have our older Black students mentor our younger Black students. I thought that that would be empowering for both the older students and the younger students for each other, so that it's much easier for a student who feels that they can relate to somebody because of their color of their skin can truly understand, similar to how I had mentioned, when my mom had passed away. So I'm hoping now that things are settling in with the addition of the Director of Educational Equity with Altressa Cox Blackwell. I hope that we continue on a long-term journey of equity. I'm looking forward to having Ms. Cox Blackwell to one of our meetings to follow up on what she's done for the district thus far. And I do want to say my next step in learning is, I wrote this down, Mr. Ryder, was cultural humility. I really appreciate Kamara and her tenacity and really making people reflect. And again, I just want to give my sincerest sorries to what had happened to that student on August 13th. I do want to take a moment, though, to welcome back all the students, welcome the new students back. It's exciting to hear that we have 47 new staff members. No, it's 47.
Is it 40?
It is 47.
47 from Mr. Drezick directly. No, 47. Didn't want to correct you earlier, but I'll do it now.
It's 47.
Nice. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for coming to our district. We're starting with a new school year. I'd like to think we start fresh, we start new, and we have an enjoyable and healthy school year. And this is a really odd time for me. I think I'm trying to find a way to get school updates because this is the first time in 23 years I don't have an Enfield Public School student. So that's actually very sad for me. So as the chair, I want to take time and volunteer at least once a month at the various schools from, Stowe up and through the high school for various events so I can still stay connected to our school community. With that being said, that's all I have tonight. Thank you. Unfinished business, we don't have any. New business, item A, appoint Board of Education elector to the Joint Facilities Committee. Do I have a motion to open the discussion?
So moved.
Second.
First by Mr. Hamry, second by Ms. Pickett. Okay, so we have a Board of Ed elector seat on the Joint Facilities Committee, and so we are able to appoint somebody on that on behalf of the Board of Ed. We received 2 applicants. Back in May, we received an application for Melissa Everett, and more recently, we received an application for Mr. Cruzel. So I know Mr. Ungary has something he would like to say.
Yeah, just quickly, I understand that there is a Republican position to elect someone to this committee, from the town council. And so it's my understanding that if we here vote tonight for Melissa Everett, that the town council will put in place Walter Cruzel on the same committee. So with that understanding, I'd be happy to support Melissa for that, Ms. Everett.
Right, there's 2 vacancies right now on the Joint Facilities Committee. The town council has the opportunity to appoint another town council person to the seat, which we've talked to them, the leadership has talked, and we have an application in Walter Cruzel, who is a longstanding board member, so the town council will discuss and appoint Walter Cruzel. So do I have a motion for the Board of Ed?
Hang on, Tina, can I ask a clarifying
Sure.
question? Sorry. I think it just connects to my comments that I made tonight about priority on school facilities as far as part of this Joint Facilities Committee. And I'm excited to hear that there's 2 people who are interested. My hope, and I hope they're watching to see if they're elected, is that they ensure that public schools are a priority, and knowing that Walter has experience on the board, so hearing that it'll be happening on the town council side is nice, and excited to hear that Melissa's interested in supporting, just asking again, a priority on school facilities.
Thank you, Ms. Pickett. Do I have a motion to appoint Melissa Everett
Just one quick
as the Board of, oh, sure, I'm sorry, I should just keep asking. I apologize.
It's all good. It's all good. No worries. I do want to support Melissa because she's got a reputation and a documented path of supporting in various capacities in various committees, energy, conserving energy, and being at the forefront of those topics that have to do with that. She's a very good addition to this committee, and I appreciate that she's still willing to find a new way to step forward and do more to be involved.
Thank you. Any other discussion? The discussion's closed. Can I have a motion to appoint Melissa Everett as the Board of Ed elector to the Joint Facilities Committee?
Motion to appoint Melissa Everett.
Motion by Dr. Kalnin,
Second.
second by Mr. Ryder. Roll call.
Mr. Ungary,
Yes.
Dr. Kalnin,
Yes.
Mrs. Cushman,
Yes.
Mr. Hamry,
Yes.
Mrs. Acree,
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc. Yes. Mrs. Pickett,
Yes.
Mr. Ryder,
Yes, Melissa Everett.
Madam Chair,
Melissa Everett.
motion passes.
Thank you. The next item is appoint Board of Education liaison to the Enfield Cultural Arts Committee. Do I have a motion to open a discussion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Ryder, seconded by Ms. Pickett. It was brought to our attention by Councilor Santinella that we had never had a Board of Ed liaison as a position with the Enfield Cultural Arts Committee. So the town council recently voted to amend the resolution to allow a Board of Ed member to be a member of that, or to be a liaison. They wouldn't be a voting member, they would just strictly be a liaison. Do I have any discussion?
Can I just ask a question about that?
Sure.
Have they ever hosted any events? Has the Cultural Commission ever hosted any events at our public schools? Is that something that?
I'll take that one if you don't mind.
Sure.
So the Enfield Culture and Arts Commission has made efforts over the years to host as many opportunities to bring out cultural events as possible. Has it happened in the Enfield schools? No, not that I'm aware of, not to the best of my knowledge. It's been in the public library, who has been one of the seats at the table, if you will, for that ECAC. And for the purposes of events in town, there's been a longstanding challenge to find the appropriate event to host in the appropriate facility. So there's, as I understand it, and again, I just want to take a quick side note to say that the ECAC has been temporarily sidelined because there's not enough members to hold a quorum. So there's been some activity on the town council side to put together some serious investment in an entertainment / cultural and arts position within town, and it's only something that's happened in the last 10 months. So while the ECAC has been struggling to do things in town and coming up short in despite the best of efforts to provide a robust opportunity to promote Enfield culture and arts and to bring in outside culture and arts to the town. It's something that is now getting some legs with some significant assistance from the town council, from the state through Tom Marnoni, through all sorts of venues that are now opening up, avenues that are opening up to bring more to town. So has there been any activities in town facilities per se? I'm sure there have been. I've only been on the ECAC for 4 years prior to the Board of Ed, but with 2 of those being COVID. So there's been some activity. I would be hard pressed at this particular moment to identify a specific event in a town building that would answer that question. And I do want to highlight one thing. The event that happens at Enfield High School with the arts and festival, I don't know what the right word is for it. I forget that offhand. But that is not something that goes to the ECAC. That's through the Enfield Women's Club. So there's a lot of independent organizations such as the Enfield Women's Club that do things like this, like what other towns' culture and arts commissions do. And for some reason, when the ECAC has attempted to do things, we've learned that the ECAC has learned that it's already being done by a different organization or that it's soon to be. It's been a very big struggle to have things come to fruition in town.
Ms. Cushman, do you have any?
Tina, I just wanted to add, and thanks for clarifying that, John. To my understanding, they were at least present. Sorry, Josh. Thank you. Sorry, I'm very tired. It's been a long night. But they were present at the art show because they definitely had a table. My daughter came home with like little crayon, like
yes, ECAC was at the event at the high school, but was not the host of it.
Yeah, so I think I've partnered with the public schools in some capacity, and I know some of the art that's being hosted, like at the libraries, are of our students. So there is some blending of education and cultural arts. Just not an official liaison has been able to support that.
And Enfield, ECAC will sponsor events to the capacity that they're able to and that they're aware of. And again, this is kind of an exciting time that the ECAC's got some support and some structure coming together to make things happen. So,
anyone else? Okay, discussion's closed. Do I have a motion to appoint Josh Hamry as the Board of Education liaison to the Enfield Cultural Arts Commission?
So moved, Joshua Hamry.
Second.
First by Mr. Ryder, second by Ms. Pickett. Roll call.
Mr. Ongire?
No.
Dr. Kalnin?
Yes.
Mrs. Cushman?
No.
Mr. Hamry?
Abstain.
Mrs. Acree?
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc? Yes. Mrs. Pickett?
Yes.
Mr. Ryder?
Yes, Joshua Hamry.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Board committee reports, curriculum committee, Ms. Pickett.
We have a curriculum committee scheduled for September 15th at 5 p.m., and the agenda will be posted for that. Thanks.
Finance committee, Dr. Kalman.
No report. We'll be meeting later this month.
Policy committee, Mr. Ryder.
We meet again in September. We did not meet in August. We couldn't find a date that worked, and we're going to catch back up the third week in September.
Thank you. The leadership committee met on Friday, August 19th. Is that the date on Friday? Yes, Friday, August 19th. I hope that we can try to get back to meeting at least once a month for leadership. The Joint Facilities Committee.
We did meet recently, and to your point, Mrs. Pickett, about the schools, we have 2 new school roofs in place at Hazardville and Eli Whitney. We have new parking lots at Henry Barnard as well as Enfield Street School. There may be some I'm forgetting, but the school construction, the roof construction that was taking place, there is some minimal cleanup happening at both sites, Whitney and Hazardville. However, they will be out of the way for next Tuesday.
Sure.
It was brought up in that meeting, which I think needs to be addressed to some capacity, that the fields are, there's some things to be desired there for our athletics down there. And with such a brand new school that looks so good, I think the fields need to be on the same playing field as the building itself. So I look forward to what is to be resolved with the situation down there.
Thank you. Joint Security Committee, Mr. Ryder.
We're next scheduled to meet on September 7th in the morning.
Thank you. Enfield Mental Health Wellness Work Group, Dr. Kalnin. Feel free to update as appropriate for your recent initiatives.
Okay. Well, I had a meeting with Mr. Drezek to discuss the status of our mental health initiatives in our school system. Really, for all intents and purposes, we really don't have any initiatives. So we do have membership on the Enfield Mental Health Committee. However, that committee has not been active lately. And so I think that it's important, in view of the dimensions of the mental health, the student mental health issue, that we proceed to address it immediately. We really can't wait. We don't want to be in a position where we have another suicide, and then everybody's throwing their hands up in the air thinking, oh, what do we do? What do we do? We don't want that to happen again. So with that in mind, Mr. Drezek had mentioned that he was anxious to work with us in, first of all, assessing the status of our resources, and then deciding, given that, what further actions are going to be needed. So I think in the next, hopefully in the next few meetings of the Board of Education, we will have guest speakers to address this issue. And I think that's all I want to say at this point.
Thank you, Dr. Kalnin. I forgot the JFK Building Committee, so I apologize, and I'm sure everybody wants to hear what's going on with JFK, especially if you have an incoming student or a student at all. So, Mr. Ryder?
So JFK did have an orientation today at noon. They were going to do 2 today, one at noon and one at 6, but they moved the 6 p.m. session to tomorrow so that the JFK staff and students who wish to could attend the community conversation this evening at the high school.
Mr. Ryder, can I just interrupt because of our camera? It's actually moved to Thursday because it was
Thursday.
a conflict. Yes.
Oh, sorry. I initially saw
yes,
a
Dr.
day.
Barrios
Okay.
put a correction out.
So
We had
that'll
a
be
little conflict there.
That'll be
Sorry.
this Thursday, the 25th. At 6 p.m. So if you couldn't make it at noon today, you can go on Thursday evening. But we are on track for an opening next week on Tuesday, like the rest of our buildings, with a brand new JFK Middle School. And as Superintendent Drezek alluded to recently, we'll be inviting the JFK Building Committee and their chair, Randy Daigle, as a board guest at one of our next few meetings in the very near future, so they can give everybody a chance to see it that may not have a student there or that may not live in that part of town. But we are all co-owners of a beautiful new middle school in this town. It's something to be proud of. So if they could come and do a presentation and show everybody virtually what's going on, that'd be great.
I'd also love to have a tour of the new building. I think we all would love to go see the new building. It's actually coming along rather quickly now that we're getting closer to the first day of school. The Joint Insurance Committee, Kathy, that one we can remove. It was a consensus that the Joint Insurance Committee had pretty much done the job they were tasked to do, and that if at best we might meet once a year if the need arises. So that's not really something we're going to regularly meet on at this point. And then the Enfield Cultural Arts Commission, I don't know if you have an update this soon or...
It's probably going to be a little while before we can get into an actual rhythm with that because the commission itself has some openings, some vacancies. So pending the appointments of enough positions on that board to constitute a quorum, I believe it's going to be on hold for a little bit. I'll update as necessary as the meetings go by.
Thank you, Mr. Hamre. Okay, item 13, approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the regular Board of Ed meeting minutes from June 14th, 2022?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Calnan.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pickett. Discussion, show of hands. Okay, approval of the special Board of Ed meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the special Board of Ed meeting minutes
So
from
moved.
June 22nd to 2022? Moved by Mr. Ryder.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Pickett. All in favor? Approval of accounts and payroll.
No report for this month.
Thank you. Correspondence and communication. Mr. Longi, do we have a need for executive session? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Pickett, second by Mr. Hamre. All in favor? Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.